Hello, today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. This is my favorite annual tag. I love watching everybody's different version of the tag, and I'll get right on to it. So prompt number one is best book I've read so far this year, and I always take this to mean my favorite read of the year so far. And for me, you probably know this if you've been around the last few weeks, it's To Ride Hell's Chasm by Jenny Wirtz. And so this was very special for me for multiple reasons. One, I bought it this year in Florida when I was at the ICFA conference, and I got to meet Philip Chase and EP Canavan from A Critical Dragon, Alan at the Library of Alexandria, Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, Steven Erickson. It was just the most incredible experience for me of the year. But I got this book and I got a signed version there at the conference. And unfortunately, I just missed the opportunity to meet Jenny Wirtz in person, but I got the opportunity later to discuss it with her and Philip Chase over on Philip's channel and Blaze from Under the Radar SFF Books. So I will link that discussion below. But on top of all of that, I ended up genuinely loving this book. So it starts off with a very simple premise. The princess is missing. These two men from very different backgrounds have to overcome their very different cultural backgrounds to find her. And I think that the way that Jenny Wirtz developed this world and the magic and the intrigue and mystery was just absolutely incredible. I just loved it. I thought the way she raised the stakes as you go on in the story and wrapped it up as a perfect standalone, in my opinion, was, I don't know, it was just masterful. So I had quite the book hangover when I finished this book because I loved it so much. I will say though, for modern fantasy readers, the prose might be an adjustment. It was for me, honestly, because there are more archaic words, I think, than most modern fantasy. A lot of formal asides, an omniscient narrator. Those things can kind of maybe take some time to adjust to, but I honestly think it's so well worth it. I loved this book so much. So I guess just because of the way it made me feel at the end and the way she approached themes and, like I said, just the build of tension throughout the story, I thought was so well done. I'm done gushing for now. Okay, so best sequel of the year. And this was very, very close in for my favorite book of the year. I'm not yet finished with the third book in this series at the time of filming, but it's easily going to go to Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. As you probably also know if you've been here a while, this has been such an amazing series for me so far. I've been really loving Robin Hobb's writing. I love her character work. I fell in love with Fitz, and this particular sequel, Royal Assassin, does not suffer at all from middle book syndrome, in my opinion. And the end, I just could not predict. There's no way I could have predicted where it ended. It's amazing the way it builds to it as well, and the way that it develops so many things that are introduced in book one. Again, I think her character work is phenomenal, especially in first-person narration. I just don't know anybody who does it better than Hobb at this point. And so definitely my favorite sequel of the year. That was so easy, right? And then number three, new release you haven't read yet but want to. And so as far as new releases that have already been released this year that I'm curious about that I haven't read yet, there are only really two that come to mind. One is Fevered Star, which is the second book in Rebecca Roanhorse's series. I think it's Between Earth and Sky is the name of the series. And the other book is Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne, which is the second book in the Bloodsworn saga. I think that's the name of the series as well. So that's the sequel to The Shadow of the Gods, which I read earlier this year. And I was very impressed with the end of The Shadow of the Gods. So I am curious to read on. Honestly, I don't know when I'll get to it, that second book, but I am very curious about it, and I do hope to get to it eventually. Next is most anticipated release for the second half of this year, and there are two. But the primary one is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I cannot wait to read that book. It's a dark academia book. I believe it's set at Oxford University, and I know that Petrick did an amazing review for that, which I'll link below, and it comes out on my birthday, so that's amazing. I hope I can get to that one. But the other one is, of course, the Stephen King fairy tale book, which everybody's talking about because it's a fantasy book by Stephen King that's a new release and it looks very good. But I'm not finished with the Dark Tower series yet, so I almost feel bad to put that on pause. I'm taking so much time with that series. But yeah, those two books are definitely the ones that are most exciting to me. Number 5, biggest disappointment. And so I'll just go by my least favorite read of the year, and that was Fight Club. And I did know going into that there was a huge possibility I wouldn't resonate with it because I just don't really like, I didn't really like the concept in the movie. But at the same time, I did appreciate the writing style as it matched this very demented character who hates himself and wants to die and wants to take everyone down with him. It all kind of made sense for what it was. I thought it was well executed for what it was, but it is not to my taste at all. I've already talked quite a bit about that. But if you like the movie, then I would recommend the book. And if you like the book, I'd recommend the movie. I think the two complement each other quite well. Just not for me. Next is biggest surprise of the year. And for me, that's going to go to The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Jeffers. That book was so impactful for me personally, especially as someone who lives in Georgia and who hasn't always lived in Georgia. It does take place in Georgia for a lot of it, and there is a dual timeline. It kind of reminds me, in a way, in some ways, thematically, of Kindred by Octavia Butler. If you enjoyed Kindred, I would recommend that book. I enjoyed the structure. I thought it was beautifully told, very impactful. So definitely that book. Next is favorite new author or debut or new to you. And that's kind of a tie, honestly, between Robin Hobb and Jenny Wirtz, because I loved both of these authors, female fantasy authors, which is wonderful. And then next is newest fictional crush. And I know Angela from Literature Science Alliance seems to have started a trend of favorite romance instead of crush. And there are actually a few books I've read this year that have had some pretty decent romances in them as kind of subplots, which I enjoy. But the one that's coming to mind for me right now is Wizard and Glass by Stephen King. There's a wonderful kind of Romeo and Juliet inspired forbidden love story there, and I loved that. I just love that. I'm a sucker for forbidden love, and I personally enjoyed the way that Stephen King answered the Romeo and Juliet question of why didn't they just run away when they had the chance. It might not satisfy everyone, but it really satisfied me, and I can't go into that because of spoilers, but I really loved Wizard and Glass. I loved that storyline so much. Next is newest favorite character, and it would be easy for me to say Fitz because I saw myself in Fitz so much, or have so far as I've read. And the answer, though, I'm going to go a different direction, and I'm going to say Stillwater from The God Is Not Willing by Steven Erikson. Our assassin mage marine, loved this character. And then next is a book that made me cry. For a book that made me cry, there are so many that made me emotional, that made me cry. Definitely the Farseer books got to me emotionally and made me tear up at times. And even parts of The God Is Not Willing made me emotional. And everything I've mentioned so far actually has made me kind of tear up at some point. The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, pretty much everything. But I think just to give a different answer here, I'm going to go with The End of The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. There was something that happened at the end. I kind of saw it coming, but then the way she executed it, it really tugged on my heartstrings and made me emotional. And I can't give that away because of spoilers, but this was an excellent read. I really enjoyed this whole trilogy. And there's also a fantastic kind of forbidden love, I think, relationship in this trilogy. In some ways, I think some people might say there's a little more agency or a little more, a little more complexity to this relationship than the one I mentioned in Wizard and Glass. But I still think I prefer the Wizard and Glass one over this one, but it's still really well done. Book that made me happy, this easy answer to that, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This book delighted me. I laughed out loud so many times. I just loved it. Another really good romance in this book too. I'm so happy to hear that Tor Publishing picked it up. So get your hands on a copy of Legends and Lattes. A favorite book to film adaptation you saw this year? The only one I saw was the first episode of The Witcher season 2, and I liked it okay. I just felt like I enjoyed reading the story more than watching it, but it was still really good. And I don't know why I just didn't feel compelled to continue watching The Witcher season 2. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll return to it someday. And then next is favorite video you have done so far this year. 2 come to mind. One is my Malazan Book of the Fallen spoiler-free video, my review of the series. It's totally spoiler-free, where I say, hey, rank the books for me based on what I say, and nobody did. Nice try, right? And then the other one is the collab I did on Malazan Book of the Fallen with Jimmy from the Fantasy Network. I finally got to have him on my channel for that. Philip Chase, Brittany from Books with Brittany, and Alan from the Library of Alexandria. So it was so fun to talk with all of them about the series after finishing. It just felt like a great, fun, celebratory party after finishing the series. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year? So actually I did splurge, and I bought a really beautiful book, I think. And that is the first book in Book of the Ice by Mark Lawrence. So this is The Girl and the Stars. Honestly, I don't know when I'll ever get to this, but I think it sounds really good. I do want to read Mark Lawrence at some point, and I decided that this was the trilogy I wanted to start with, but let me know if you think otherwise. I know other people start other places with Mark Lawrence's writing, but I think it's because Books with Brittany talked about loving this particular trilogy, so it made me eager to pick it up. So that's why I did. But beautiful book. Next is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So many. Stay tuned. I'll have a lot of reading plans announced for that. Right now, I'm still trying to finish Assassin's Quest. It's taking me a long time to finish it, but I'm really enjoying it. But there are quite a few, so I'll be talking about that in future videos. For now, though, my answer is just Assassin's Quest, the book I'm currently reading. And that is all for now. Please let me know if you've done the tag, because I'd love to see your version of it. And let me know your thoughts on any of the answers I shared. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.